Let's talk about the people whose job it is to bring it and deploy it. That's the Ghana Health Service. There's a wing at the Ghana Health Service known as the Expanded Program on Immunization. The person who manages that is Dr. Kwame Amponsan Achiano. Doc, you're welcome to Eyewitness News.
Thank you very much.
How is your outfit receiving this news from the FDA that we have a new vaccine for malaria and we are the first to approve it?
Well, thank you very much and good evening to your cherished listeners. Yeah, so for us, as you rightly pointed out, Ghana Health Service is the arm that does vaccination. And within the Ghana Health Service, we have the EPI, or the Expanded Program on Immunization. The first step for introducing any vaccine, any new vaccine, is approval from the Food and Drugs Authority of Ghana. And therefore, for us, this is just a first step. It's early days yet. Approval does not necessarily mean introduction. And so for the service, we take leadership of the ministry. So what the Ministry of Health usually does is that for all vaccines and related issues, they commission the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, which is a group of experts that advises the Minister of Health on vaccines and their related issues for advice, after which a policy document is done or concluded. Then the minister then orders, or for want of a better word, requests the service to look at it and then introduce if it has to be done. So for us, it's very preliminary, and we would study the document. We don't have a lot of information, so we'll study the documents and look at what has to be done within the context of vaccine introduction. So it's early days yet, but we are happy because regulation is always the first step. So that's it.
How early are the days? Because for the generality of the population, this is exciting news. Over 160,000 people die annually, we are told, from malaria on the continent. And I believe we have our own significant share of that number. If we can have a vaccine, that is welcome news. But if you say it's early days, then the question would be how soon before we see a rollout locally?
Yeah, so as I indicated, there's a process that takes place. We don't introduce a vaccine as soon as it's approved. It has to go through the Ministry of Health, which is a policy arm that directs the service. And so I believe that by now the ministry has picked it up. All the necessary protocols will be followed. And as I indicated earlier on again, the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group will have to be commissioned by the minister. And then they look at all the available documents and evidence before that kind of introduction.
Even though it is our authority that okayed it, we still have to go through that long haul?
Exactly. I don't know what you want to call long haul, but it's a process that is a standard procedure that we follow all the time, irrespective of whether it's approved or.
Typically, how long would this take?
Remember that you are not just dealing with just an introduction. It has to do with funding. There are issues around coaching. There are issues around training. So it could take some time. It's not a 1 week, 2 week thing. You need to look at all the elements for vaccines. Communication bit, how you saw the vaccine in terms of making it generating demand. You have to look at the cost effectiveness of the vaccine. Of course, once the FDA has cleared, what it means is that it is safe to use, it is efficacious. So that's bottom line. That hurdle is jumped already. But then, what is the cost? Is it affordable? Is it immediately affordable? What other vaccines do we have in the system? Of course, this will be more or less the first vaccine that has been approved by the Ghana FDA within the context of what they normally will call market authorization. What they normally do, once they say it's approved, it means even the private sector can go for it or sell the vaccine. So it's not just approval for government, as it were, government programs per se, but even the private sector can do that. And so that's the context.
So it will take us, and I'm still looking for a duration that we can work with. All the things you've mentioned, would it take us maybe a month, a year, a decade?
It could take a year or less. I don't determine the process. So, of course, remember that the EPI itself sits within the service, and the service has a clear direction. We have a director general who directs all the activities.
But do you have a malaria program that would say, oh, this is welcome news, let's jump quickly and deal with this because it's been a problem for us for a while now, like we did with COVID-19 vaccines. As soon as it was approved, we went in for it. Would we have a similar approach for malaria, or we would take a slower pace in dealing with this particular one than we did with COVID-19?
Malaria is a very, very important disease in Ghana. And for whichever malaria approach, there's a vaccine, we always work within the Ghana Health Service, the EPI, or that's the Expanded Program on Immunization, and the Malaria Control Program under the direction of the Director General, and by extension, the Director of Public Health. We work together on that. So, as I indicated earlier on, remember, it's also a policy issue, and therefore, the minister will then have to do that kind of direction overall to the Ghana Health Service and its other units or departments or divisions.
Do we also know if this would be for adults or just children?
What I know for now, even though I don't have a lot of information on the vaccine, is for children between 5 months and 3 years. That is what I know as of now. I don't have any further information on that.
Okay. Of course, because you don't have a lot of information, maybe I can't be asking you a lot, but let's just one last question. Does it mean we have the final solution to our malaria problem, or this is just maybe half of the problem solved?
Well, there's no vaccine in the world that is 100% efficacious and 100% safe. There usually will be some a proportion of persons who may not respond. And therefore, any vaccine for malaria would be an add-on to existing interventions, including the bed net use, the indoor residual spraying, and other interventions that the malaria program has already been carrying out. And so for me, whichever case it is, it will be an add-on to that. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's a one-stop solution to all the malaria problems. But it's a welcome piece of news.
Why are we describing this as a savior? Prior to this, we have the tablets that they give to you when you have malaria and all of those things. Does it mean that those ones were not as efficient as what has been approved now?
Well, it depends on who describes it. I haven't read that portion of it, but the malaria control has done a lot, and I mean within the sub-region, and that's malaria control programs in general. However, the control of malaria has stalled for some time because additional interventions are needed, and therefore any addition, including vaccines, will be very, very much welcome. Remember, we are already a malaria vaccine piloting country. If you recall, we've been doing one other malaria vaccine, RTSS, since 2019. We've expanded, but we still have some districts that are left uncovered. And so once this one comes on board, we would weigh the pros and cons depending on what direction or what advice the ministry and by extension the NITAG, the National Immunization Technical Advisory Group, offers to us.
How
and then, of course, partners as well.
How different is, and I don't know if this is a brand name I'm going to mention, but I know chloroquine is a name people always mention. And there's something they mention at lumefantrine, something. I'm not sure. These are things that people usually buy for their malaria problems. How different is a vaccine to those things that they give to us in the pharmacies and in the hospitals? And we are told that some of them are produced locally. What would the approval of this mean to that? Would it mean that business will collapse?
Well, this is a very tough question for me, but let me explain that there are two separate interventions, if I should put it in that context. There's a preventive part, and then there's curative part. So many of the interventions for malaria are preventive, and vaccination is preventive. All the others you mentioned are curative. Those are the treatment. That is once the person gets ill. And for me, as I said earlier, you still have people coming down with malaria in spite of the vaccines and all the preventive methods, as we have now. And of course, any new vaccine with high efficacy would help much, much better. However, there will also be people who might fall ill, and so treatment will still be indicated. And that is why I said that it will come as an addition to existing interventions, not just the preventive, but even the curative.
I've seen that recently. I think just this March, your service issued an information that Ghana had confirmed the invasion of some dangerous new mosquito breeds. Do we know if this would address that one too, or that's a different challenge that has to be dealt with differently?
Okay, so I think we are still opening up. You see, malaria is caused by a certain parasite called the Plasmodium. So this parasite is transmitted by mosquitoes, the female Anopheles mosquitoes. There's quite a number of them. So the new discovery is just one mosquito that can be an efficient transmitter of the disease. Vaccines do not stop mosquitoes from transmission. What vaccines do is to prevent somebody from getting ill once you get a parasite. And so I think we should be able to draw the line between the two.
Yes, that's clear.
It does not treat or kill mosquitoes. The mosquito may still bite you. Remember, the mosquito does not bite with the intention of transmitting malaria. It's only a byproduct, for want of a better word again. And so it is. It does not stop any mosquito from biting or from reproducing.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Doc.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's Dr. Kwame Amponsa Chiano. He is manager of the expanded program on immunization at the Ghana Health Service.